Good evening and welcome back to Church Unplugged with Shield of Faith. We're so excited to have you joining us this evening. Just give me one moment. I'm just wanting to make sure our sound. All right, there it is. Just want to double check that our sound's working after our little technical difficulty a couple weeks ago, but it looks like everything's good to go. And with that said, once again, thank you so much for joining us. Tonight's a super special night because for those of you who do not know, September is National Ovarian Cancer Awareness Month. And so we are so excited to be joined by an ovarian cancer survivor, Tanya Cummings. We're so looking forward to hearing what she has to say. And we are also joined by her amazing father, the amazing pastor of our church, Pastor Frank McElhaney. I'm excited to get to talk with them. I hope you're excited to hear what they have to say. Before we jump in, as always, I will be monitoring our chat throughout the night. So feel free to leave any comments, any questions that you may have throughout the night, and we will do our best to address them. With that said, I think we're good to get started. You guys ready?
Yes.
Let's go.
Yeah. How are you guys doing today?
Tired.
Tired?
Very tired. I don't know about
Very
you.
busy day.
Yes, I 100% relate to that. So thank you both for taking time out to talk with us this evening. Now, as I mentioned, this month is Ovarian Cancer Awareness Month, and I feel like we can kind of hear about months that, stand for something. October, I believe, is Breast Cancer Awareness Month. And, a lot of times we think, oh, that's awesome. It's cool that there's a month for that. But we don't get to hear people's stories too often, I feel like, their personal journey with things like ovarian cancer. And so, Tanya, I'm just going to ask you to open us up tonight. If you wouldn't mind just sharing a little bit about your diagnosis, kind of touch on your journey with that and how that's kind of been for you.
Well, thank you so much for the opportunity to be able to talk about ovarian cancer and
Absolutely.
bring awareness to the fight against it.
Mm-hmm.
My story actually starts way back in 1991.
Yeah.
Whenever my mom was first diagnosed with a form of ovarian cancer, which now today we know as primary peritoneal cancer.
Mm-hmm.
And that was my senior year of high school that everything kind of went crazy for me whenever we ended up finding out she had her surgery.
Yeah.
And they didn't end up, giving her too long to live. And at the time, and kind of rocked my world.
Mm-hmm.
And then the Lord provided a miracle and gave her a miracle. And we were blessed to have 19 more years with her.
Yeah.
And then in 2010, she passed away and from primary peritoneal cancer. And after that, I actually got the opportunity. My mom was incredibly awesome at keeping and taking notes.
Mm-hmm.
So her calendars were they're like a diary.
Uh-huh.
It was like the best ever. So all the way back, and she kept the little pocket calendars, and she also had her wall calendars. And she literally wrote down everything, like every movie that she saw, every doctor's appointment, even got to where she documented every time that she would have any type of pains, aches,
Wow.
anything like that. So there was a lot of history that I was able to really read. I lived and experienced it with her, but I was also in high school at the time.
Right.
And there were times that she quietly, I think, suffered whenever she was struggling with the different pains that she had.
Mm-hmm.
But being able to read that, even going back to y'all's, she documented y'all's first date. I have ones from whenever she was
That's the best.
And
I bet we need to get some of those back.
yeah, they're the best ever. And talk about it was great stuff. So I say that because that helped me to be aware of the different symptoms. So because I had my mom being diagnosed at her age,
Right.
She was 38, about to be 39 at that time when she was first diagnosed. And that my doctors were very on it from the get-go, because when I got pregnant with my first child, my mom was still in her like 5 years, like and every year was from doctors would be like, you're still alive. I mean, that's a miracle.
Yeah.
I mean, any little thing would try to come back. It's like, it's a miracle.
Yeah.
So we knew that every day was, I mean,
Absolutely.
she knew and gave that all glory to the Lord for that. So they were watching me closely from the get-go.
Right.
And so I started having, and did always kind of have some issues with where I would get the bloated pain, the pains that I would, kind of cramp up in bed and hurting. I had always dealt with cysts and dealt with having, and I was not somebody that was incredibly fertile.
Mm-hmm.
And so, and I think about the fact that, I have my 2 daughters. I did have a miscarriage whenever I was in 29 Palms with my husband, like our first, would have been our first child.
Right.
I did miscarry. So I just had several different things that they kept extra care and always watched me for. Well, I had a cyst that they had been watching for a while, actually several cysts. And this one time, and actually, I was really bad about going to the doctor.
Yes.
You're still really
Still really bad at going to the doctor.
Push.
Yes, they had asked me a couple of times to come back in a particular season that they need to be able to look at things closer.
Uh-huh.
And so that happened for 2 years that I didn't go back and do that. And then this one year I actually did in 2017. And they were like, we need to get this out. But I don't think that it's cancer. I think that we just need to go ahead and get this. It's solid. It doesn't look nice. And so we'll just get everything and take a look and clear up the other side. But we're going to go ahead and do a whole hysterectomy and everything. And still, whenever I had my surgery, so Ashlyn got married on the 9th of December, and I had surgery on the 14th. And they did the hysterectomy, but still thought that it did not look like cancer.
Mm-hmm.
They didn't do the biopsy there because it to them didn't look like it. It just was supposed to be my part of my story, I guess. And then I ended up getting the call that it was cancer, and they had left one of my ovaries, so that led me to having to have another surgery. And a lot of it has to do too, I think, like just with who's caring for you. Like the doctor went to, I absolutely love him. He delivered both of my babies. He's absolutely amazing. And it just, like I said, happened to be a part of my story.
Right.
And I was going to be putting it off. And like every moment with ovarian cancer is incredibly important. I was going to put it off till later on. And my boss, which I'm incredibly thankful that she did, but she was like, no, you need to go have the surgery. Don't worry about this. And luckily I did. And I got the news right at Christmas time. So I had to wait until January to go to the doctor and to be able to go to the oncologist and everything. And it was crazy living it from the side of the patient opposed to being, helping be the caretaker.
Right. Yeah.
And it is crazy how much your ears, like whenever you're the caretaker part and you go in, you like hear everything. But then whenever you're the patient, it's crazy how your mind is thinking about a bazillion different things.
Different perspectives.
So and that's especially, I was very, very blessed because of, what my mom walked through and the battle that she fought and them watching me closely.
Yeah.
I was blessed to
Absolutely.
Have been able to have caught it early, which is, it's huge. I'm still in my time period. I had to go every 3 months to the doctor. At first it was like every month, then it was every 3 months. And I've graduated now to my last appointment. Now it's every 6 months.
Yeah.
So, and I'm in between my first 6 months to my next appointment. And they watch me. My oncologist is amazing about watching me really close.
Wow.
And so that's my.
And correct me if I'm wrong, but it's I believe, from research and what I've heard, it's one of the rarest cancers to catch early, right?
Oh,
in
absolutely.
women,
Oh,
absolutely.
yeah.
Yeah.
It's put off as so many other things.
Stomach problems and
Yes.
Well,
IBS.
They diagnosed Janet as having scar tissue.
Yeah.
So they were going to do an operation to remove scar tissue.
Mm-hmm.
And of course, she had been talking to him for a good while.
Yeah.
And so by the time that they decided to remove the scar tissue, quote unquote scar tissue, it was full blown stage 4.
And it's
ovarian
aggressive, I
cancer.
believe. Yeah,
Very
it's an aggressive type.
It's very, as with all cancers, different people, it's different things.
Yeah.
So doctors have to decide how aggressively they're going to
Right.
treat it.
Right.
And some people can stand an aggressive treatment and some can't.
Yeah.
But yeah, actually it's been called a silent killer because
Mhm.
people didn't have like a giant pain that made you go to the emergency room or
Right.
something that you could put together. And like Tanya said, I hear listen to people talking. If they start talking about stuff, I'll tell them myself, you need to go to the doctor.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah.
I mean, I won't, especially
Well,
especially younger.
I wanted to bring in your perspective because not only was your first wife diagnosed and you had to walk with her through that journey, but even, later having your daughter kind of experience the same thing. What is that like as a husband and a father for
Well, you feel helpless.
you? Mm-hmm.
And if I didn't know that God and that prayer really works,
Mhm.
it would drive me insane because, to be honest with you, I'm a fixer.
Mm-hmm.
And so if you tell me what's wrong with you, I want to make it better.
Mm-hmm.
So one of the hardest things about helping people for me is learning to be able to keep my mouth shut. Because I want to fix everything. And then sometimes you can't do that.
Yeah.
And in the case where Janet, I've never felt as helpless in my life
Mm-hmm.
because there was absolutely nothing I could do. And, they would tell, I told, the doctor came in and said, well, you don't have to tell, she was still out. You don't have to tell her, we'll tell her tomorrow. And I said, nah, we don't do things like that in my house. And I sit there and when she woke up, she said, it's bad, isn't it? And I said, yep.
Mm.
She says, cancer, isn't it? I said, yep. And she said was, if that's what it takes.
Yeah.
And what she was talking about it's probably another topic but she was talking about people coming to the Lord.
Mm-hmm.
So, and I could sit here and tell you a number of people that came to the Lord through her witness that, because she stayed, she never had a doubt in God at all.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, absolutely.
But when Tanya started having trouble and they were talking about that, I told her the same thing. She didn't say that I told her to go to the doctor, but I told her to go to the doctor. And
Lots of people did.
I actually told her, if I need to take you, I will.
Yeah. You did say that.
And because that's not something that you need to play around with.
Mm-hmm.
And you're even younger than your mom was. So before this was considered, they didn't even really think it would be ovarian cancer until you're like 60.
That's
Yeah,
what
that's
they
true.
say. That's
So
what they
they
tell
didn't
you.
even look for it. Do you understand what I'm
Mhm.
doing?
Come a long
Now
way.
she's saying her doctor was,
Yeah.
and that makes me feel a lot better.
Absolutely, yeah.
Because at that time they didn't figure ovarian cancer. If you were under 60, 65, they were looking for
told me,
something else.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So always, I'm not good about going to the doctor myself, but I've gotten better because your body will tell you when it's not working right.
Absolutely.
But with Tanya, you know, I felt not only for her, but for Scott too, because Scott's a fixer too.
Mm-hmm.
Her husband, he's a protector,
Absolutely.
and there's just nothing you can get your hands on. And the only battle that you can fight, you have to fight it.
Well, and I think it hurts too. I mean, and you've both shared this, when you just seen someone you love hurt and go through things like that.
You
I mean,
can't.
it's a hard thing. I do want to read a couple of comments. We have Pastor Carla. She said, "I love y'all. Such an important topic. Thank you for sharing your heart and you and your mama's stories." We have Pastor Scott watching. We have Kyle watching. We have Ricky. Hello, everyone. We're so glad you're tuning in.
Yes, absolutely.
I did want to go back to Tanya. You were talking about how awesome it was that, you know, your doctor was really on top of it. You know, they were wanting to check, which absolutely, especially when you have a family history, I think it's super important. But you've been vocal about in the past of how it's important for every woman to make sure that they go get checked out, even if you may not have a family history. If you feel something is a little off, you know, do you just kind of want to highlight the importance of that?
It's just being going to your annual appointments, because and to being your own advocate. I think that a lot of times we just put trust because sorry, my gum. I'm horrible. I have to.
No, you're totally good.
Because
didn't even notice.
We think, oh, they're the doctor. That's good. But
I know, yeah.
But yeah, and you have to listen to your body. Like whenever something's off, you know, keep saying something about it and talk to them about it. Like there's certain things that we've come to find out that are things that you can check. They won't always tell you, yes, this is what it is, but sometimes they do. Like when you get blood work, asking them to do a CA 125.
Yeah.
And that's incredibly important. Also, the internal sonograms are incredibly important. Those are things that as a woman, whenever you are going to have your annual appointments, that helps them to take a closer look and to see, number one, if you have cysts, which are very common. So if you have cysts, don't think that's ovarian cancer.
Right.
It's not that. It's just that if those cysts take a different shape, if they grow or they don't ever go away, there's like processes that our body does as women that when it's not working correctly, those things can turn to tumors. And then you want to, double check and make sure. And I think too, like part of my story, the day that they told me that everything is it wasn't looking good and I needed to go ahead and have the surgery. And I can't remember why. I think that must have had surgery, but Scott was at a minister's conference, and maybe that's what it was.
My leg broke off.
But you had it. You had the second. No, that was before it broke off. That was from your first surgery, I think.
No, it was
from your leg.
It was my leg broke off right after Ashlyn's wedding.
Oh, okay. Because I'm talking about before I had the surgery. I went to the doctor and they said that I needed to have the surgery. Scott was at a minister's that normally that my dad would be at too, but God knew. Yeah, there was a reason why you were there. So Scott was gone, and I just I drove straight to my dad, and literally he said, like it was just having him hold me too, and talk to me, and knowing that familiar place of like he knows where I'm coming from, right? And have him saying to me, Tanya, you know what your mom would say. Like, it needs to all come out. That's a part of like knowing that, and that's a very hard place, I think, even as a dad, because he knows both sides of it. What it's like for the woman after that happens, and that was even before the cancer diagnosis. That was just saying, hey, let's be extra. That's the best thing.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely.
And so it really is going and being your advocate and talking and taking care of things. And some doctors, like my doctor, my gynecologist, he is so incredibly uplifting. I mean, he is like Mr. Rogers. I mean, and he's amazing. He's very good at what he does, to the point that even the news coming from him to Scott was very different than sitting with my oncologist and her saying, this is what y'all
This
are
is what's
facing.
happening.
And that other ovary has to come out. Like,
Yeah.
this is not a game. We can't play. And he was like, wow. I mean, it's so different because Dr. Seeker could make anything be like,
Mr.
oh, no, it's great. Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, it's like, it's going to all be okay. And it is okay because,
Well,
God's going to take care of it. But
Mhm.
and
it's,
two, you need to, when you go to the doctor, you need to ask questions.
yeah.
Mhm.
If they tell you something and you feel something somewhere else, you tell them.
Yeah.
You tell them, no, that's not it. I mean, they're not gods, they're people.
Mhm.
Yeah.
And
Yes.
even though they
Make mistakes.
got a good education,
Yeah.
Some of you guys got a good education too. So
Yeah.
that don't keep me from asking questions.
Absolutely.
And,
Absolutely.
And so that's what I did, like with Janet. I went to every doctor's appointment, and this I want to tell everybody right now. If you have somebody that has a cancer diagnosis, any kind of diagnosis, you go with them,
Mhm.
because whenever you hear the word cancer, the rest of everything you hear is blah blah blah
Yep.
blah blah blah
Yep.
blah blah blah.
A tumor. Yeah.
So if you don't have anybody, you need somebody. I told you that.
Yeah.
But you have somebody go with you because you need to hear,
Absolutely.
because they're
Having
going to
just
say,
another-
what did they
another
say? What
perspective.
did they say?
Yeah.
Because you're not going to hear what everything said. So you have somebody with you. You ask questions. I would ask, even when they had orders from the doctor. I said, I want a copy of that.
Yeah.
And when we went to the hospital, they started acting like they didn't know what it is. Here, you can use my copy. Because
Like,
it's
I'm ready.
just not, I mean, people don't mean to do stuff like that, but you have to understand, she's talking about be your own advocate. You not only do that, but you have somebody close to you that will advocate for you.
Absolutely.
And so Janet was a person that if you told her to take this medicine at 9:05
Her granddaughter's
a.m.,
like that too.
she would take it at 9:05 a.m. She wouldn't take it at 6 or 4 or 3. It was not, on the money.
Yeah.
And so when the doctor started saying, well, I said, no, you just back up.
Yeah.
Tell what you want.
Mhm.
Because
Step by step.
Sure.
Yeah.
yeah, don't
To the
do
T.
that well, because that leaves some people in a pretty big
Right.
hole because they
Yeah.
don't know if they should go one way or the other.
I'm the opposite.
But another thing that was important, and it's about medication. Somebody told her about People's Pharmacy.
Mm-hmm.
And so she actually took the medication that she had, all of the list of it and everything, and then they came back and told her what she could take together, what she couldn't take together, how, like if something needed to be taken an hour later than something else. So that alone helped her feel a lot better because she wasn't taking medications that you shouldn't take together,
Mm-hmm.
that were prescribed by different doctors.
Yeah.
So, and you wind up with a lot of doctors.
Yeah. You do.
Yeah.
You do.
So,
And a lot of different appointments. It takes a lot of your time. And I think you're just,
your life changes.
yeah, your life changes,
Yeah.
but you are worth
Yes.
every moment spent. And I think that is what is hard. Like we can get so caught up in our jobs. We can get so caught up sometimes in, as moms, especially
Yeah.
like taking care of our families and making sure everybody
Make sure
else
you
is
take care of
okay.
yourself.
That we
Yeah.
totally forget about ourselves, even though everyone's saying like, take care of yourself, mom, take care of yourself. It's so easy to say, I don't have time for this.
Yeah.
And I, even from my first experience going into my second experience, and I remember, my oncologist saying to me like, Tanya, like, no, I mean, I kept trying to push out my second surgery.
Yeah.
And trying to fit it in with, a spring break and,
Yeah.
trying to get all the timing and all
Yeah.
that. And she was like, no, that's not,
Yeah.
like, you need this and you need this time. And we try to take as little time as possible off work.
Yes.
And I think that that's another part too of whenever you are diagnosed or you are experiencing things is to stay connected. Like if you can continue to be a part of.
Don't stop.
Yeah, don't stop, because a lot
Yeah.
of times you can then get into that depression. You
Yeah.
can feel secluded, and I tell you,
Go on vacation.
yeah, it was so. Oh gosh, I should have done that.
Yeah, go on vacation. Do something.
I did not do that, but I did watch a lot of crazy things. Like I
We
did.
found some new
We
shows.
really did. Because I am not good about being still
Yeah.
at all. I'm horrible at it. And just not being able to do anything, especially when it came to my second surgery, they were so close together, kind of rocked my body a little bit.
Yeah.
And I was so like I couldn't do anything. So I started watching like different shows and stuff, and it was
Yeah.
crazy town. So
Yeah.
You just and as you go, if you're the caregiver, let the doctors do what the doctors can do, but you do what you're supposed to do.
Mm-hmm.
And that's something that I've heard people say, well, it was hard to do this and hard to do that. Well, I didn't really look at it that way. It was a privilege to be able to help do something for her,
Mm-hmm.
because she had always done everything for me.
Yeah.
I mean, let's face it. I couldn't add up my checkbook. I didn't know how much money I had in it. I didn't even know where our bank account was.
like what your account number was.
I didn't know none of that.
very
She took care of all of that stuff, and she continued to do that. And she was the head of the missionettes group. Actually, the section 2, she
Yeah.
continued to have, and basically, I mean, some of the things that happen so the hardest thing that I've seen that happens for women is that their hair falls out.
Yeah.
I mean, it literally, you don't think about it, but
Yeah.
This is,
It's hard.
it's hard.
Yeah.
But I'm just going to say this. A pastor came to pray for Janet when he had been there. We'd been there, and she'd been in the hospital several days then.
Mm-hmm.
And bear in mind, this was supposed to be a day surgery. We're supposed to be in and out.
Right.
And pastor came in, and I remember exactly what he said. He said, he took her hand and he said, I believe God's plan for you is life, not death. I'm going to pray for you. And he prayed, and something about that prayer clicked in me.
Mm-hmm.
And like Tanya said, it was 19 years before she passed away. But prayer is an important thing.
Right.
That relationship with God, for you as the caregiver or you as the patient,
Mm-hmm.
is really important. And I think, sometimes things like that push people apart. But the truth is, I think it brought us closer together.
Mm-hmm.
It gave me an opportunity to understand what I could do in that regard. I didn't know I could do stuff like that.
Mm-hmm.
And
Absolutely.
I didn't know that. I knew I could build a house and all that kind of
Mhm.
stuff, but I didn't know I could.
Mm-hmm.
But when you love someone, you'll be surprised
Mm-hmm.
how some kind of adversity like that can bring you closer together.
Absolutely.
There's a lot more survivors today,
Yes.
Mhm.
Much so.
and the story is just pray that it gets better, but pay attention to what you're feeling.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And it looks like Pastor Scott has a couple of comments. He said that cancer is never a word you want to hear, but God is our healer and he is in control. We never have to fear. And then he also says, Janet and Tanya are both such huge testimonies of who God is and what God can do in a life who is willing to be used by him. So blessed that they both are huge parts of my life. Aww. I love, and you both mentioned it, which I think is such an awesome testimony of how Janet, was told with her first diagnosis, this isn't looking good, and how she got 19 more years.
Yeah.
And even with you, how you said yours was caught very early, which is pretty rare. And so kind of with that in mind, if there may be someone watching tonight who has been diagnosed with cancer, or who is, on a journey with a loved one, and are maybe, kind of asking, God, what is your plan? How is this? Where are you in this? What would you say to them? And Tanya, we'll start with you.
Well, I can say that even before my mom was diagnosed,
Mhm.
she was at service one Sunday evening, Sunday night, and the Lord actually called her back to go and spend some time in prayer with her, and that back in one of the where was our children's church room.
Right.
She had went in to go and pray. And the Lord told her that he was going to take her through something, but it would not be unto death. And
Wow.
I think that's a lot where when my mom woke up that day, she knew that, to the world's eyes, that it wasn't a good thing,
Right.
That the Lord had, gone before her and everything, and prepared her
Mm-hmm.
for something. And I think that even within myself, one of the things, whether or not it's on the caretaker side of what I experienced or on the patient side, is that there is hope.
Yeah.
Like there is hope. And that what is so awesome, and my mom, until her very last breath, would say to you that it's not done and it's not over until the Lord says that it's time. And
Mm-hmm.
Some of the most beautiful moments happen in the last couple of days of my
Mhm.
mom's life. Her, praying over our children, my brother and his wife getting to share with her they were expecting their first child.
Mhm.
They didn't tell me.
Yeah, we didn't find out till Sunday after, and my mom had passed away on a Saturday, and I got to tell her on that Friday. It was just beautiful moments that the Lord gave, and actually, I can say that. And I hate that it was at the loss of, my dad having to lose my mom at that time, but there is nothing more beautiful than truly seeing someone love, or people love one another till death do us part. Like seriously, to see love in action,
Put that into
like
work.
that.
Yeah.
There's nothing more beautiful, because when you're selflessly loving one another, because you want so much for one another to be here forever.
Absolutely. Yeah.
And my mom had such a great love for her family. Like she loved life. She loved life a lot, and loved the Lord immensely. And there's nothing, she would never want you to look at her story and think that she lost, because she didn't. She won. She got she got to glorify and honor the Lord in so many ways. And on the patient side of it, that diagnosis, it's not the end all.
Mm-hmm.
And each one of us have our own story.
Yeah.
And it's beautiful, in particular to each and every one of us. And more than anything, have faith and know that there is hope, because there is it, especially with ovarian cancer. And the reason why we have Ovarian Cancer Awareness Month, there has been so much brought. So it has come a long way.
Yes.
Just from whenever I was diagnosed, from when my mom was diagnosed, like the first time to when she was diagnosed, whenever, not diagnosed the second time, but whenever the primary peritoneal, came back.
Yeah.
And then to whenever I was diagnosed, and even to now, they're always, and it is there now, they are finding it in, they're catching it early. They're not that it's a good thing, but there are people in their 20s and in their teens that they have found it in, and they're being able to take care of
Absolutely.
it. And, so
there's just a thing that really you need to think about is simply who you are.
Mm-hmm.
I've been diagnosed with cancer too, but I didn't have it. Turned out they had the wrong X-ray,
Oh gosh.
but I still had to, I was still.
Well, that's a mess up.
So yeah, but the thing is I know what it's like to hear those words.
Yeah.
And have to sit down. But what I'd like to tell people, if you have been diagnosed with any cancer, ovarian cancer, then you need support around you. Don't isolate yourself.
Yeah.
Don't stop. Get out when you can. Actually, one of the things after Janet was diagnosed, I mean, we took her everywhere.
Mhm.
She told me once.
Yeah.
She said, "I would have never got to do any of this stuff if I hadn't married you, because I wouldn't have never done it."
Yeah.
But she also said she didn't ever think that we would have the means to do that, because let's face it.
Yeah.
But as it turned out, the Lord provided a way. She got
Yeah.
to do some fun stuff.
Yeah.
So have fun, live life, and
you're not a burden. I think
No.
that's
Yeah,
that's
yeah.
one thing. Yeah.
listen right here. I'm glad you said that. I'm going
Mhm.
to let you finish what you're going to say, and then
No.
I'll jump in.
No, you go ahead. That just came to
No,
on my heart.
that's a privilege to be able to help someone and take care of someone.
Yeah.
It's not a burden at all.
Yeah.
It's a privilege. And people talk about intimacy, and usually when they talk about intimacy, they're talking about sex.
Mm-hmm.
But that's really not. Really, sex doesn't really have anything to do with intimacy.
Mm-hmm.
But I think probably with all the things that we faced, we spent more time being intimate in the last few years.
Yeah.
That she was alive than any of the time before, because we were both busy.
Yeah.
It was a different kind of ministry family, because she had her own ministry and I had my own ministry.
Yeah.
I know you have people that say, well, if your wife doesn't have the same kind of ministry you have, it's not God calling you. That's a bunch of baloney. Because she definitely had her, and in fact, I was known as Janet's husband for many years in ministry. So, and that's in fact, when I went to get my credentials, the guy just told me, he said, if it was your wife wanting credentials, we'd say, yeah, we don't know who you are. So, but it's a privilege to take care of people. It's not a burden.
Mm-hmm.
And don't ever think you're a burden.
Absolutely.
Because it is a privilege to be able to take care of people. And I feel that about a lot of people, not just ovarian cancer.
Absolutely.
Just don't ever think you're a burden.
Mm-hmm.
If you have friends and family that, someone is facing cancer, I mean, care for the caretaker as well.
Yeah, absolutely.
Because that in itself can be overwhelming.
It affects everyone.
So whenever you are, when you are caring for someone, you then begin to neglect yourself sometimes.
Yeah.
And so you want to make sure that, you're taking care of both. And I am a part of several ovarian cancer survivors networks, and you wouldn't believe how many people do share that because their family and friends don't know what to say or what to do, they pull away from them.
Yeah.
And a lot of times even leave because it's so overwhelming for them.
Yeah.
So I would say, and also to get in a support group.
Yeah.
And both the caretakers and, if you have children, get your children in some kind of counseling and stuff too, if especially they have, like, doctors have given you a terminal diagnosis.
Right.
Just because it is something to help process through and to go through, because you do feel different. And I do know that there are several women that have shared. I was actually shocked. I didn't realize
Well-
that wasn't my experience. My husband, moved in closer to me opposed to pulling away, but we're not all made the same.
Absolutely.
And
Well,
so,
One of the things you can say is, I love you.
yeah, well, that's good.
Don't worry about, you can't fix it. So don't
Yeah.
worry about trying to
Yeah.
fix it. If you're a caretaker and you don't draw back, you
Yeah.
just say, what can I do to help you?
Absolutely. Yes.
You don't try to say, oh, it's all going to get better and stuff like that, because you
Yeah.
don't know. All you need is, what can I do to help you?
Yeah. Well, it's even like you
And-
said earlier, you feel
and-
helpless.
And if you nothing else, just hug each other and cry.
Absolutely. Yeah.
I mean, I'm just
Sometimes
telling you,
just your presence is what you need. Just to know
that's
you're
it
not
right
alone.
there.
Yeah.
Just hug each other and cry.
Absolutely.
And maybe sometimes you need a good cry.
Mm-hmm. We
You
all
find
do at some
yourself,
point.
if you've been diagnosed with cancer, you'll probably find 3 or 4 different times you'll need a good cry. And if you're a caretaker, you'll find
Yeah.
sometimes you can cry together and sometimes you cry by yourself.
Yeah.
But just
It's
say,
okay to
I
cry.
love you.
Yes,
Get close.
It's okay to cry.
It's okay to cry. It's okay to say I
Absolutely.
love you. It's okay to not know what to do.
Right. Yeah.
It's just say, you just ask. I mean, you just say, what can I do to help you?
Mhm.
Uh,
It's not supposed to be an easy
You want me
process.
to sit beside you?
Yeah.
What?
Yeah.
If you want me to leave and go outside and leave you alone for a little while, tell me.
Yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely.
It's just that sounds real simple, but it's the way I have to do things, because I don't know until I ask, and people said if you and so I have to learn how to do that.
Mm-hmm.
And don't be afraid to, whenever it comes to asking for second opinions. Like if you
Yeah.
are feeling something, directly speak into like the ovarian piece of things, like, and you get diagnosed with IBS. That's one of the common things
Yeah.
that you're
Yes,
diagnosed
yes,
with.
yes, yes.
And you still feel like there's something going on. Don't hesitate
Yeah.
to get a second opinion. That's not going to hurt. And you've told me this so many times. Scott has also said this to me, like, Tanya, the doctors are not your friends. Like me, let's all be friends, and
No.
that you can't
Your
go
health
that way.
is important.
Yeah,
Yeah.
like just if you need a second opinion, whatever you need, to keep looking, because you will have that tug, and yes, there's times that we can hear something and think, oh, is that what I've been thinking?
Yeah.
But just like common symptoms, things that are dismissed. A lot of times, acid reflux, that's something, the indigestion can be a sign of ovarian cancer
Yeah.
too. Bloating,
Yeah.
whenever people say, oh, that's just gas, and of course goes with the IBS, but there's like that different feeling, and you'll have that pain sometimes that can, where you do just, it feels better to be crunched up in a ball.
Yeah.
Also too, like having like bowel differences, whether it be constipated or having diarrhea, things like that can also be signs and symptoms.
Irregular
of ovarian
menstrual
cancer.
cycles.
Yes,
Yeah.
irregular menstrual cycles. There's several different things that women just deal with on a monthly basis anyways.
You wouldn't
'Cause you
think.
got so much to do.
Yeah. And
Yeah.
they say, don't, no, that's just, well, you know what? I want you to do whatever you can to show me that that's just.
Just that,
And,
yep.
and I know that insurance companies and all that, it can all be super hard, but they've come a long way,
Yes.
and they know ways that they can take care
Mhm.
of you regardless.
And you're worth it.
Yeah,
Like you
it's,
said.
you're worth it.
Yeah.
You're worth it. And
I've
That
said
should have been the
many
title of
times.
this video.
I've said
Yeah.
that to her many times, to different people. Doctors are not your friend. It's
Yeah.
their job. And if you have questions, you need to ask them.
Yep.
If I take my car to a mechanic and they say, well, I think it sounds like this. And you say, well, I don't think it sounds like that. I'm going to go check this other
Yeah.
guy out.
Yeah.
You do that.
Yep.
And because let's just face it, you're worth it.
yeah.
Amen. Amen. Well, I think that's a perfect note to close tonight on. Thank you both so much for
Thank you.
once again taking the time and speaking on this and sharing your hearts and your stories. This is a special month, and so we're glad we got to talk about this. We want to thank all of you for joining us. As always, we hope that you enjoyed this conversation. And just that, maybe you learned something new about awareness and you're inspired to take care of yourself and that you're worth it, like they said. You can join us next Wednesday for our next episode here on Facebook Live at 7 p.m. And as always, you can like us on Facebook, follow us on Instagram, and you can join us for Sunday service at the Cinemark Stonehill, 10 a.m., the movie theater in Stonehill, 10 a.m., auditoriums 9 and 6. With that, once again, thank y'all so much for your time, for joining us, and we hope y'all have a very blessed rest of your week.
Good night.